Behind every successful product is a journey that starts with an idea and grows into something that makes a real impact. Think about it. Every app, every platform, every tool you use daily started just as a concept. But creating a product that's not only functional but profitable, that's where the real challenge lies. In this video, we'll explore how the software development lifecycle, or SDLC, provides the framework for transforming ideas into impactful, profitable products. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a developer, a product manager, or just curious about how great products are built, you're in the right place. Let's start with the big picture. The SDLC isn't just a technical process, it's a structured way to build software efficiently, effectively, and with purpose. Most people think successful software always comes from a stroke of genius or some eureka moment. However, software is much more scientific, and the main motto is to develop and test hypotheses, be that in software, mock-ups, rearranging the current features, integrating with other software, or anything else that could bring value to your users. Each step in the software development lifecycle builds on the next. Discovery helps us understand the big picture down to the individual user's pain points and motivations, which allow us to devise hypotheses that can test our value propositions. The art is in finding a balance between those lofty features that take a lot of time and manpower and the high-value small tasks that can bring large amounts of value from small effort. Each team is unique, and over time, a balance will be found to assure peak performance. This discovery process is where it all begins, understanding what the product needs to do. It's about asking the right question. Who's the target audience? What problem are we solving? What features are must-haves, and what can we wait for the future updates? Starting on the macro, we need to define our markets. Where is it we're trying to offer our solution? Do they need to speak a certain language? Are there any technical requirements? We are aiming to find a few smaller niches to begin our journey, but we can always make changes or pivots if we find we are mistaken throughout our empirical tests. Once we have defined our perceived ideals, we need to start defining those personas. Personas are really just general users. For instance, you could have server Sally. She is active, but works late because she's a server. She works in a cash-rich environment and has some money to spend, but she really seeks value. She may be single or in a relationship with or without children, but her key motivations are value, usefulness, and consolidating her bills. So if there's a bill or two we can eliminate, she might be a prime subject to be a user for us. In practice, we define this and others more detailed, but this is just an exercise to illustrate how personas work. In the end, you want to have those motivations and pain points you outline in the personas in order to design solutions to attack as many of them, preferably all at once, as possible. The thesis of the discovery phase is talking to the users and understanding them deeply. The theme is underlying every step of this software development process, and why product-led development is how large companies are made in the modern world. Now that we've found some hypotheses in the discovery phase, we'll try to figure out how we'll implement them and what we'll implement. There are a number of frameworks, but Scrum is a very popular framework for agile development. This is what we use at Blast Off Apps, in fact. In Scrum, you write what are called epics. These are just general statements that will cover a bunch of detailed requirements written in a specific way, called a user story. These user stories are in the format of as a, I want to, in order to, and are meant to be irreducible or unable to be broken down into smaller pieces. This obviously takes some practice, but it can be learned. As an example of a user story, as a user, I want to log in via email and password in order to see the homepage of the app. All of these stories will go into a prioritized list called a backlog. When they are first devised, they won't be very detailed, and they'll be in an unrefined backlog. But after the first of 5 required meetings in the Scrum process, the backlog grooming or refinement meeting will give more details and specifics to each user story, and then they'll be placed in the refined backlog. Now that we have some idea of what we need to build, the associated user stories, and the potential users to talk to, and potentially utilize for being early users, design is up next. Yes, it does involve mockups and wireframes like you're probably thinking, but there is much more to design. First, you must design the product itself and its strategy in order to preserve the capital and manpower to deploy it in a timely manner. Then, the technical development must happen, and then with that, you need to know and outline the way the login works, what authentications they'll have, what roles are there, what do they do, what don't they do, what can't they do, what can bad actors do, how many roles are there. There are many things that you need to design before you jump into the actual development. At Blastoff Apps, we use this stage for what is called feature-driven development. This is when you design the visuals and agree to those, so from the very beginning, you're on the same page, and there's a lot less chance of miscommunication and scope creep, as technical people will always be wary of. With the designs in hand and the potential users agreeing there's value there, the team needs now to prioritize and execute the work with the next Scrum meeting that's required, the sprint planning meeting. This is the meeting where everybody gets together and figures out and defines a sprint. The sprint is just a set of user stories that will be addressed in a 2 to 4 week period of development. We use 2 weeks at Blastoff Apps, but 4 weeks is common enough. To complete this meeting and kick off a sprint, acceptance criteria must be defined for each user story. These are very simple questions, ideally with yes or no answers, so that we can approve or reject them when the sprint is done. Each story gets as many acceptance criteria as required to fulfill the needs of the user story. As a team works, Scrum requires a daily meeting also. This meeting is called a daily stand-up and should last no longer than 15 minutes. There's no discussion other than answering these 3 questions. What did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? And do I need any help? This and other tools will help keep the whole team on the same page while development is happening, and any issues will be elevated as soon as possible. This mitigates risks of delays, sprint failures, and other bad outcomes. Once the sprint is complete, you will have the next and almost last Scrum meeting, the sprint review meeting. This is where the demos happen, and team goes through acceptance criteria for each user story and hopefully approves the sprint and stories. The final Scrum meeting is called the sprint retrospective. This is a time we all get together and discuss what went right and what went wrong. The aim is to make sure everybody can get their input and give their input as well. And then we can devise tactics to fix these problems that came up in the future should they come up. Then we add them to our risk register, which really just is everything we could think of bad that could happen and how to fix it before it happens, and hopefully it never does. During the development phase, there's also a required testing. Of course, we'll do the unit testing that we outline on our user stories through acceptance criteria, but there's other requirements too. The reason this has its own phase is because it may or may not be very complicated, because different security, load testing, scalability, compatibility, compliance, sanity, and many other types of testing are required for some apps, and then very few of these are required for other apps. It just depends on your unique situation. The goal of this testing phase is to make sure that the software is working well and won't break when we release it to the public, and it won't break anything that's currently working in our software. Deployment is here, the big moment. The product goes live, but even at this stage, the software development lifecycle doesn't stop. There may be multiple stages to the deployment that puts the new software in the hands of segments of users, or databases come in contact with the new software, just so that you make sure that there's no unexpected problems. But once all users have the new software, you may think it's over. In fact, outsourcing contracts usually do end here. But in software and with software development teams, there is no real end. After deployment, you need to monitor your users, make sure that there aren't any bugs, errors don't arise, and you need to keep talking with them. This is where analytics outlined in the previous stages will allow you to back up your assumptions with data, and that will shine an objective light into your users' actions. The name of the game is still to listen to your user. You will have the customer success agent that will help your user through their journey. As they get to know each other through outreach and when they report bugs or have suggestions, the customer success rep can surface new areas of value or unforeseen new pain points, personas, or even markets. Software is an ongoing process of delivering value to your users. The software development lifecycle focuses on the user. By doing this and applying the time-tested scientific method of defining hypotheses, testing them, and repeating, your team's chances of success go dramatically up, and the chance of miscommunication and misalignment in expectations will be much less likely to occur. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out or email us at contact@blastofapps.com or fill out our contact form in the description. And also feel free to share this video and subscribe to stay tuned for new videos about the magic that is